Students, I hope you are enjoying your holidays. This is Professor Yusuf Shah, and I'm going to talk to you about an interesting topic, dysphagia. These are the contents of the topic. Definition, we talk about definition, then the mechanism of swallowing, then we have a clinical presentation, then we grade dysphagia. We talk about etiology, investigations, and management. The dysphagia is derived from a Greek word. Dys means difficulty, and phagia means swallowing. So the eating becomes unenjoyable. It refers to the sensation of food being obstructed in the food passage anywhere from the mouth to the stomach. The basic impairment behind dysphagia are the two phases of swallowing. One is the oropharyngeal phase, and these pictures show the various mechanisms that occur in this phase. For example, there is elevation of tongue, the posterior movement of tongue. Number 3, the elevation of soft palate. Number 4, elevation of hard bone. Number 5, elevation of larynx. And number 6, tilting of epiglottis. So these are the various 6 movements that I've just spoken to. The esophageal phase consists of whereby the food bolus is propelled through the esophagus by an involuntary wave of contraction mediated by enteric nervous system. Pressure gradient speeds the movement of food from hypopharynx into esophagus when the cricopharyngeus muscle relaxes. The primary peristaltic contraction, which is initiated by a swallowing, moves down the esophagus at the rate of 2 to 4 centimeters per second and reaches the distal esophagus in about 29 seconds. So this duration varies from 8 to 20 seconds. The clinical presentation of dysphagia are the following: the pain and difficulty in swallowing. Number 2, sensation of food being stuck into throat or chest. Number 3, coughing or gagging while swallowing. Number 4, nasal regurgitation. Number 5, dysarthria. Number 6 is nasal speech because of associated muscle weakness. Number 7, frequent burning sensation in the chest. Number 8, having food or stomach acid back up into the chest. And finally, unexpectedly losing weight. We grade, when you see patient, you grade the dysphagia. You ask from the history whether it is grade 1, which means it complains of dysphagia but still eating normally. Grade 2 requires liquid with meals. Grade 3, able to take semi-solids but unable to take any solids. Number 4, able to swallow liquids only. Number 5, unable to swallow liquid but able to swallow saliva. And finally, the last grade is 6, when the patient is unable to swallow saliva also. So, as you can see, it has been classified broadly into 2 types on the basis of its site, whether the lesion is in the oropharynx or is in the esophagus. If the lesion is in the oropharynx, you will have several conditions of CNS, peripheral nervous system or motor end plate, and the important of these are Parkinson's disease, cerebral vascular accident, multiple sclerosis, brainstem tumors, and in peripheral nervous system you will have poliomyelitis and peripheral neuropathies like diphtheria and even diabetes mellitus. And in the motor end plate you have myasthenia gravis, or you have muscle dystrophy, oculopharyngeal or primary myositis, or glycogen storage disease, or there is mechanical obstruction. For example, inflammatory causes, syphilis, tuberculosis, abscess, pharyngitis, or neoplastic or Plummer-Vinson syndrome, or extrinsic pressure due to Hashimoto's or cervical osteophytes or lymphadenopathy. Or you have the disorders of the upper esophageal sphincter, whereas it fails to relax. So you have cricopharyngeus achalasia or oculopharyngeal muscular atrophy, or there is inadequate opening, for example, in Zenker diverticulum, or in delayed relaxation, for example, in familial dysautonomia. In esophageal dysphagia, you have several causes. For example, neuromuscular motility disorders, the most common of which is achalasia, where the lower esophageal sphincter fails to relax. Or secondly, you have diffuse esophageal spasm. And the other motility disorders, for example, the nutcracker esophagus, or hypertensive lower esophageal sphincter motility disorders secondary to collagen disease and Chagas disease, are other causes. Or you can have mechanical obstruction due to, say, esophagitis or gastroesophageal reflux disease, or medication induced esophagitis from quinidine, potassium or vitamin B complex, or radiation treatment or caustic injection. Or you can have disorders of the wall. Number 3, you can have diseases causing external compression, for example, hypersthenia or a mediastinal growth, or even vascular ring, also called dysphagia lysoria. Or you can have luminal causes like foreign bodies, esophageal webs, Shkatsky rings, carcinoma. Okay, so if you look at the associated symptoms, you could consider, for example, if the patient has difficulty initiating swallowing, there might be oropharyngeal dysphagia, or food sticks after swallowing in the chest. This is esophageal dysphagia, you can think about. Or there is a progressive dysphagia. For example, there is a case of neuromuscular dysphagia or carcinoma. Or there is sudden dysphagia. For example, it happens after intake of a foreign body, or even inflammation of esophagus called esophagitis. Or intermittent dysphagia or rings and webs, for example, nutcracker esophagus or diffuse esophageal spasm. You can have cough during swallowing, early due to neuromuscular dysphagia, or late due to carcinoma. Or you can have weight loss in elderly, which is due to secondary to carcinoma. Or you can have pain after swallowing, you will have esophagitis. Or dysphagia is related to solid foods only, that is obstructive dysphagia, or solids and liquids both, it's neuromuscular dysphagia, or there is regurgitation of old food and halitosis, is Zenker's diverticulum, or the dysphagia relieved with repeated swallowing that occurs in achalasia. So when you evaluate a case of dysphagia, you take a history and you do a clinical examination and you do a standard baseline investigation, CBC, serum iron, LFTs, urea creatinine, etc. And then you go into radiology, you do a plain X-ray chest, for example, and then a barium meal, or you do a CT thorax or upper neck, and then follow it by upper endoscopy. Some people do an endoscopy before they do a radiology, but there are others who do a radiology first so that they can have a picture of what's happening there and then do an endoscopy. You can do a laryngoscopy to exclude any lesions of the larynx, and then we have a manometry where you do pressure differences, record the pressure differences, and 24-hour pH monitoring. And advances include endoscopic ultrasound and finally histology. So here is the look of few X-rays. This is a plain X-ray of the chest where we have a denture as a foreign body. This occurs in an elderly patient, or in a child where he or she has swallowed a pin. You can see a pin on a plain film. Others is a barium swallow, and the first one shows a mild esophageal diverticulum. In second, there is a epiphrenial diverticula here, and in the third one you got a Zenker's diverticulum. On this barium swallow, the first one shows a typical appearances of achalasia. This is a typical bird beak appearance, and a long-standing case, it becomes a sigmoid or S-shaped. The next barium swallow shows a nutcracker esophagus. This barium swallow shows a stricture usually caused by ingestion of a caustics, or beetle one shows a sliding hernia, and the last barium swallow shows an irregular filling defect secondary to carcinoma esophagus. This is a dynamic Cine radiography is a dynamic assessment, and there is radiographic visualization of food bolus movement from oral cavity to the stomach. This is an endoscopy showing there are two types of endoscopy, rigid and flexible, and this is a diagnostic and therapeutic as well. Diagnostic, you could have a look at it and do a biopsy as well, or a therapeutic, you remove a foreign body, or you do stenting and dilatation. And these are the appearances of various esophageal conditions on endoscopy. The first one shows a Barrett's esophagitis, whereby the gastric mucosa has migrated upwards into variable distance up the esophagus. In the second one, there is a typical Shikatsi ring. In the third one, there is redness, the lower end, typical of esophagitis, and you can see a diverticulum. And the last endoscopic picture, that of esophageal diverticulum. Here you got a foreign body, a bone on endoscopy, And on this, the next picture, you will have a paraesophageal hernia in a retroflexion view. Um, and the next endoscopic view is that of corrosive stricture, this film, and that this is that of a typical picture of a esophageal carcinoma. So manometry assesses the pressure at various esophageal sites. So it is useful in achalasia cardia, where the lower esophageal sphincter fails to relax, or there is, in second condition, there is diffuse esophageal spasm, or thirdly, there is nutcracker esophagus, and lastly, which is not very common, hypertensive esophageal sphincter. So there are two types of manometry that you do: stationary and high resolution. So these are pictures of manometry showing the pressure differences at the sites of various sphincters. So this is normal peristalsis, and these are abnormal peristalsis, and those that you can see in achalasia in the last one. This is a 24-hour pH monitoring, in which you place a probe just proximal to lower esophageal sphincter, which during 24 hours you see the differences, whether there is any reflux, because acid reflexes up the esophagus, so there is a change in pH from any change in pH increase the pH becomes acidic. So that confirms that there is a this is a typical how we do leave a manometry probe there, and that will pick up changes in the pH. And endoscopic ultrasound is done these days, in which you can easily do a TNM staging and also do a biopsy. So it will tell you whether the tumor is confined to the esophageal wall or it has gone beyond all the layers. So this is the details of that endoscope used in this case. So histology, the first one shows a typical histology of a Barrett's esophagus, and the second one is squamous cell carcinoma, which means this is related to esophagus, and adenocarcinoma, the lower end, which means you treat it as a carcinoma of the stomach. So treatment includes your lifestyle modification, drug therapy, therapeutic endoscopy, dilatation, stenting, chemoradiation, and surgery, and we'll discuss these quickly in a while. So lifestyle modification includes you chew well, sit up straight, raise the upper part of the bed, don't drink with meals, take walk after eating, manage stress, quit smoking and alcohol, exercise daily, don't eat at bedtime, don't bend after meals, eat less for dinner, and no pressure on stomach. These are the various I have highlighted various aspects of it. If there are inflammatory lesions, you use an antibiotic or an antifungal and you drain an abscess. If there is a case of neuromuscular dysphagia, you maintain oral hygiene and chew well, use semi-solid liquid diet, eat small meals more frequently, and take care that way. Drug therapies are for H2 receptor blockers antacids and PPI and metoclopramide, domperidone for reflux esophagitis, nitrates, calcium channel blocker agents, sildenafil for motility disorders, and Botox and steroids, and vinegar and lemon orange juice for alkali ingestion, and milk, egg white, and antacids for acid ingestion. Therapeutic endoscopy means you foreign body the bolus extraction, and you can see a food bolus extracted endoscopically in this film. And there are various methods of doing it. Or dilatation of a lower esophageal sphincter or a stricture there, a benign stricture there, up to a hydrostatic pressure of 40 to 60 F. These hydrostatic and pneumatic pressures, strictures, scatic rings, and these are the various pneumatic dilators. These various self-expanding stents, metallic stents used to dilate in carcinoesophagus where it is not resectable. So there are various, there's a where you feed into it and you stent in C2, and this is where it is stented. Chemoradiation grade 1 and 3 dysphagia in case of CA esophagus is a new adjuvant therapy before surgery. It may be palliative as well, but grade 4 to 6 chemotherapy role is palliation and use cisplatin and 5-FU. Surgery includes you do a diverticulum or diverticopexy myotomy in case of esophageal diverticulum, or a myotomy in motility disorders, or neuronal or neuronal dysphagia, or a fundoplication in reflux esophagitis, or do a hernia repair, for example, in hernia repair, hiatus hernia, or esophageal resection and reconstruction in malignancy or long-standing achalasia or caustic stricture. This is a Zenker's diverticulum done by open cricomyotomy and diverticopexy and diverticolectomy. The various pictures in this the treatment for motility disorders. You do a Haller's myotomy, and then you do a Nissen fundoplication. You roll the upper fundus around the lower esophagus and bring it forwards and stitch it forwards. In this case, in the reflux esophagitis, you can do a fundoplication as already mentioned, especially if failure of medical treatment has occurred. And there are various types of fundoplication, but you ought to remember just one of them, Nissen fundoplication or Belsey. If you want to resect the esophagus, it's easy to explain to them. You either resect it going through the stomach, laparotomy, and then go through the chest. You can either do a left thoracotomy and then, or a right thoracotomy, and then combine these procedures with anastomosis in the neck. So you will have either a laparotomy or a right or left thoracotomy incisions, and then an incision in the neck where you anastomose in the neck. You anastomose the stomach or the jejunum or the colon with the resected with the esophagus which is left in the neck after resection, and the anastomosis is in the neck, because if a leak occurs in the neck, it's easy to manage, whereas if you've done an anastomosis in the mediastinum and a leak occurs, that is surely going to lose, you're surely going to lose the patient. So there are various methods that I have told you. You can either go to the stomach and the right chest and then the neck incision, or do a thoracotomy or left thoracotomy and a neck incision. Or lately, what Belsey Mark IV has done is, he has done a left thoracotomy, and in connected with that he has done a resection and brought the stomach retrosternally up and anastomosed it through a neck incision in the neck. So there are various methods of doing it. As I have told you, you can bring the stomach, you can bring the colon, you can bring a jejunum. So these are details you don't have to know it, but I have shown you the pictures. And lastly, I thank you for your interest shown in the picture. Thank you very much.